Hello and welcome to the Alexandra Wenman show. My guest today is a nature bunny. She's so amazing. It's Tansy Jane Dowman, who is a personal evolution coach. And I'm going to let Tansy talk to us all about her stuff, but basically be prepared to delve into the wisdom of nature. Tansy, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thanks so much, Alexandra. It's so lovely to see you after so long. Yeah, really lovely to be here. Thank you very much.
So can you tell us a little bit about the nature of your work? You have a real mixed bag, don't you? But
Yeah.
what's your main offering?
Well, I kind of like, I guess I should really start with how it all came to be, I suppose, because it's a kind of been a journey, a really wonderful evolving of my work. And when I left my big corporate job, I started out as a coach because I had been coaching people in my work. I was managing teams. And I went on a couple of coaching courses and found it really useful and got really passionate about working with people and developing people. And so when I really wanted to break away from that career and find something for myself, coaching felt like a really good starting ground for me. So I went on to train and become a personal performance coach, kind of, standard one-to-one coaching. And then I was kind of hitting a few bumps in my road. I was going through a few challenges, and I had found that walking out in nature was really, really supportive for me. I've just I have a dog anyway, but yeah, I was kind
You
of
had
going,
to.
yeah, so it was kind of like part of it, but this kind of walking was a bit different. It wasn't just a means to an end, it wasn't just like, I just need to walk the dog. And while I'm walking the dog, I'm just going to do my to-do list. It was like, I would find myself going out, and it was a real sort of symbol of getting away and walking much more slowly and paying attention. And I really found that when I was looking around me and listening and noticing that would really, really help to calm this kind of tornado of thoughts that was like buzzing around in my mind. I was in quite a fearful time in my life, and I was just sort of amazed. And then I would go and sit on benches and I would just get lost in it. And this was before I heard about things like forest bathing and mindfulness outside. So it was just really, it came to me first. And then I got more into well-being. I went on to study Reiki, and I was studying lots of meditation and mindfulness practices. And then we moved to Kent. So this is like the unfolding of my journey. There's no sort of direct path. And I'd gotten some new clients, and I was working face to face with this woman, one of my clients, and she was really stuck. And we were working through things, and she was just finding it really hard to find the answers. And here I was sitting in my lovely house in Kent, looking out the window. And at that time I lived right by these fields. I had a gate at the bottom of my garden that went out into the fields. And I just said to her, I was like, do you want to go for a walk? Like, she was like, yeah. And we went for a walk, and we sort of, walking alongside each other. And it was like, wow, what happened there? Like, it was just a total shift in energy. Like, she was able to express herself more freely. She was so much more in flow. I guess the fact that we were side by side, she wasn't feeling like she had to give me the answers. Like, she could look out in front of her, and obviously she was, because she was moving her body, she was able to breathe more deeply. So she was more connected to her body. So she was probably, feeling more grounded in that situation. And we both kind of looked at each other and went, oh, wow.
Breakthrough moment.
It was really, really incredible. And then I just connected the dots. I was like, hang on a minute, I've been doing this thing alongside my work for me, but this is actually, there's something much more to this. So that is why now, alongside my coaching, I still coach people online if I can't physically be with them, especially obviously through this time. It's been a lot of online work, but I do offer outdoor walking coaching, and I call it kind of personal evolution coaching, because when you're walking out in nature, you're surrounded by this growth. You're surrounded by wisdom and beautiful metaphors that can show you so much. You're also just outside and you're free. You're not hemmed in by four walls and sky's the limit. it really puts a different dynamic onto the coaching experience and the therapeutic side of it. And then naturally my coaching style has taken on a lot more of a turning to the wisdom of nature. So really, you know, when we're working through these things that we're all going through, these challenges in life, and turning to the wisdom of nature, because we are nature. You know, this is something that we forget so often. We get so separate from nature, but when we're suddenly surrounded in it, it's like we suddenly kind of come home a bit to ourselves, and we begin to remember, and we have these kind of a lot more aha moments and breakthroughs. So that's the kind of the coaching side. And then of course that just led me to be like, I need to know more about this. And so that's why I went on to train in kind of natural mindfulness, which is mindfulness outside, and forest bathing as well. And so it's all kind of come together to all the various offerings that I have, lots of workshops, etc. So yeah.
It's so beautiful. Even while you're talking about it, I just feel like I'm out in nature. Like you carry that energy about you. It's really, it's so lovely. I love
you.
the words forest bathing. I mean, it just sounds
Yeah.
heavenly, doesn't it? So what
Yeah.
happens during a forest bathing workshop or session?
Yeah, so I mean, I always like to start out by saying, because I guess one of the things I fear is that people think like, oh, forest bathing, that just sounds like some fad. Like, oh, is that just the next wellness thing to come along? And honestly, people have actually been forest bathing for, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's nothing new. But it's kind of, you know, the Japanese coined that term forest bathing. Well, actually it's a translated word from the term that they call shinrin yoku, and that really literally translates as forest bath. And so that's how we then translated it to forest bathing, this term. And essentially what they have meant to explain by that is that it's not a physical aspect of bathing, although wild swimming is, you know, totally allowed with nature connection. But in a forest bathing workshop, it's really about bathing in the atmosphere of the forest and connecting to your environment on a very sensory level. So really dropping down out of our kind of constant headspace and becoming more nature, because, you know, nature does work on a much more instinctive and sensory level. And so when we manage to drop down a little bit and connect in with our senses, the whole experience, it's just a completely different experience to, say, if you were walking through the woods with a friend, or like I said, walking the dog and maybe listening to a podcast, or, you know, you're doing it because you're clocking it. So that's all really good, by the way. I'm not saying that that's not good. It really is. Any time spent in nature is good. However, the forest bathing experience, it asks a different level of attention and stillness and slowing down. You know, when you go on a workshop, you don't really cover a lot of distance. It's not about going on a big hike. It's the distance traveled is not important. It really is about how you can slow down and what you notice, and then how that makes you feel. Because I guess the beauty with the Japanese is that they've done extensive research into it, and it has been proven to have so many health benefits. I don't know if you want me to go through what they found.
Let's talk about some of the science of it, because you know,
Yeah.
obviously there've been so many studies done, haven't they? And it's so healthy for us.
Well,
What have you discovered?
this lovely thing is that they started it actually back in the 80s without really much research. So they went forwards with forest bathing on a very intuitive level, which is really lovely. I always love to hear that, you know, especially with governments that trusting in their gut, you know, in their instincts. And it wasn't until the kind of early 2000s that they really sort of thought, right, okay, let's find out exactly what happens. And they were kind of monitoring this on people spending 2 hours in nature, and again just having that kind of slow mindful time. And in that time they would measure various things, and what they found was that during that time, or after that time, the heart rate had lowered, the blood pressure had lowered, cortisol levels had lowered. And of course with those three things alone, that's really helping you to step out of fight and flight, isn't it? And move into kind of the rest and digest aspect. And of course then people would report feeling so much more peaceful and calm, and experience feelings of joy and connectedness, because that's, you know, that for me is the big part of it. Like I like the science because it's really helpful to help people understand that this isn't just a thing, you know, that's sort of fad. But for me, it's a deep sense of connectedness, which in turn helps me, it really brings in a sense of belonging to me, because suddenly I realize that I am part of a much bigger picture, you know, that we hear that term web of life. And sometimes if we're disconnected from nature, we think, oh, you know, what does that mean? But suddenly when you're really able to drop down and connect with nature and understand that you are part of it, yeah, a wonderful sense of belonging. And then the other amazing discovery that they found was about this phytoncides that the trees emit. And so the trees are, you know, when you walk into the forest, you kind of smell an aroma, don't you? You get the earthy soil and the trees and the leaves. But trees particularly emit these tiny little particles into the air. And they're emitting those because they are protecting themselves from things like bacteria or perhaps insects that are trying to attack them. And so they give off this scent to ward those things off. But what they found was that when humans breathe in those tiny particles, when you're walking through the forest, that will increase your natural killer cells. And those are the cells that we need they're our immune system, basically. And so they are what we need to fight off things like bugs, colds, illnesses and things. So that was a major sort of discovery. And I guess it's totally linked into essential oils, because that is the compounds that are used for essential oils as well. So
absolutely. I love this because it's so interesting. I didn't know it was called that, but I do know. And in our chat that we did recently, we talked about, I see it as this golden energy coming off the tree. But it's amazing to hear that there's a name for it, and it's actually a known
phytoncides. Yeah. So, and actually, after those 2 hours in nature, your immune system will stay boosted for a month.
And so it's so important right now in the way that we are. Thank goodness, like during lockdown when we were all kind of meant to stay at home, we were still allowed out for walks and things.
Yeah,
here in the UK.
And actually, I felt really passionate then. I know that everybody was going through their own thing, their own kind of fears and worries, but I felt this real sort of surge to really want to be like, everybody, you know, we need to get up when we go outside. Let's just get ourselves out in nature and, you know, just breathe deeply and be present. And ended up doing quite a few like online workshops, and then I did a few like walks where I just walked myself, but you know, I had like a camera GoPro on my head.
Oh, I love it.
It's really, really nice to help people to understand, you know, that process, and that it's actually quite simple. It just I just ask for your attention, I guess, you know, that's the main thing. So,
and I know we did a joint Wonderment event, didn't we? And,
yes.
You did such a beautiful visualization. I mean, you took us on a walk. It was just wonderful.
Yeah.
And I love that because, you know, even like I say, talking about it now, I feel like I'm getting all those same endorphins going in my body. You know, it's just, I think the imagination can take us there. It's
Absolutely.
not exactly the same thing, is it? But you can.
No. Yeah, you can absolutely. I mean, and the fact that because we are part of nature, because we are nature, that we do have so much within us to be able to connect to nature at any place, any time, and especially through meditation and mindfulness. And a lot of the times I ask people, what are the qualities that you admire in nature? And, you know, you get various different things that people will connect to, but a lot of the time you get that, you know, that it's calm, or that it's grounded, or that it's strong, that it's vibrant. You get all these different words, and of course these are all qualities that we would like to embody ourselves. And so then when you can picture a really beautiful strong tree and close your eyes and imagine its roots growing down, and this beautiful canopy, and the branches and the connections and the networking and stuff, it's we can connect with it in our minds as well. It's very, very powerful. Yeah, I loved our workshop. It was lovely. Apart from when my kids were like that was like the perils of the lockdown workshops, you know. It's just everything just was in together, wasn't it? There was no hiding. And I think my daughter then was having a bit of a tantrum outside while I was kind of coming to the end of the meditation. I was like, okay, stay grounded, stay grounded.
It's real life, isn't it? I love it, you know, keep it real.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it definitely was like that.
You also do a lot of good work in the corporate world, don't you?
Yes, yeah. I've been sort of doing I'm just starting to reach out into the corporate world. I've been really interesting actually to work with a few companies going into London and getting them out into walks, because that's the other thing as well, that I guess people assume that I would always be in the depths of the woods and the forest, which I guess I am the majority of the time, but I practice mindfulness walking in London. In fact, I did it with Chris Fitchie as well of Wonderment. I did a workshop for him as well in London, and it was incredibly powerful. In both of all those times that I've walked in London, it was a very, very powerful and empowering experience, because of course most people, when you're walking through London, most people are really in a hurry, you know, they're very focused on where they need to be, and most people are, you know, lots of people are looking at phones, lots of people have headphones on listening to stuff, or they're just kind of, you know, really blinkers on going. And so when you make that choice to again step down out of that space and walk slowly, and even walking with a group, I said to, like, I felt like we were in some kind of like secret club. Like no one really knew like what we were doing. But when you're able to sort of step back and observe the goings on around you, it's really, I feel empowering is the word I want to say, because you really realize that you do have the choice to slow down, that you don't always have to get swept up in the rat race or thing. And then the other thing is that when you start to look around, I mean, London is a beautiful city. It has so many parks and a lot of nature, but even down in the city, where one group I took out, looking for those pockets of nature, even the weeds that grow up through the middle of the concrete, you know, and taking a moment to actually consider that journey and the resilience and the strength and the courage to push through, and the trees that stand there quite solitary but yet also are there for our benefit to absorb the pollution. You know, those you might have seen in London, there are tons of the tree called London planes, and they are specifically put in lots of parks and along streets because they're super absorbent for pollution. And so there they are, our friends that are helping us, you know, our environment, and helping us with our health, and also adding beauty to the pathway as well. So yeah, it was really powerful. And people have, of course, some people, if they've never done that kind of work before, they might feel a bit skeptical, or they might feel a bit uncomfortable, even a bit embarrassed that they're doing something a bit different. But by the end of it, they really have, if they've given themselves permission to drop down, then the feedback is always really incredible. You see people's faces really lighting up because they come and say, oh, look over there, or they've noticed something that they wouldn't have noticed before, and suddenly the penny drops a bit, you know, like, yeah, this is actually, and then, you know, how they feel at the end is obviously a really good indicator that they can notice a difference in themselves. So
you're doing magical work, woman. You know, this is I think also what you're doing is helping people to kind of awaken to those subtle levels, aren't you? You know, that it's almost like we, you know, you and I know how to read the signs from the universe and the signs in nature, and in that mindfulness practice and that observation practice, you're almost teaching them how to read the sign, you know, how to notice things like that. That's amazing. And they're probably having more and more experiences because you've opened their mind to a different way of thinking. It's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I love it now with people who've come on my workshops and have invested time, and then they'll end up like messaging me afterwards. They start sending me photographs of beautiful places they've been. That's actually why I set up my private Facebook group. It's called the Reconnection Nest. And I mean, honestly, I'm not the type, I don't have a huge amount of time to invest in running a group, and it was always something I was fearful of. But then again, in lockdown, it was like, get over your ego. People need this, you know, they need this sort of spaces. And so I created the Reconnection Nest for people that do notice nature and do understand our connection and want to know more, and people will just share their moments or share when they've been on a lovely walk and the small things that they've noticed, and not just around them, and how that they respond to that. And also, you know, these sort of downloads, I guess, you do get from nature, and especially with the coaching and the forest therapy walks that I do, the one-to-one work is we'll be talking through something, perhaps something that they're moving through, and it'll be like, okay, let's just sit and see what messages we get. And it's just incredible, yeah, that people suddenly see something in nature and then connect it to their own story, you know, whether it's a fallen tree or, you know, a tiny little plant that's fighting its way to come up, you know, shoot through the forest floor. They've suddenly seen this tiny root, or or moss that's covered this tree and it's giving it love and comfort. Everybody, I learn so much as well, because people will reflect stuff back to me, and I get so much out of it as well. It's like reciprocity on so many levels. Really, giving back to nature and, you know, giving back to each other. So,
and the fact that you're a personal evolution coach, and if I always notice the cycles, the regeneration kind of cycles within nature. I always think about that, you know, isn't it amazing that you can get that tiny seed that grows into the plant and the tree, and then it regenerates itself and drops the seed, and you can notice so much renewal in that. And it kind of, I always find that helps me. It's sort of like, you think about this too shall pass. You know, if you're in a cycle of dying away or decay, or things kind of feeling like they're leaving your life, just allow it. It's part of the process. It is actually a natural thing that we do. And especially as women, we're very cyclical kind of beings. So allowing the time and the space for that to leave, whatever's leaving your life to leave, to make space for whatever's coming in. I always think that, you know, even with our emotions, when we kind of draw in, there will be that drawing in, but then there's that kind of out breath when you allow things to sort of just be as they are without judging it. And then when you're ready to take that in breath again, all the goodness that's coming back to you. And no matter what stage or age of life you're in, we all follow that season, that cycle, that rhythm. It's just incredible, isn't it?
I'm so glad you've brought that up, actually, because it's been coming up quite a lot with my clients at the moment. And the thing is that we so want to hold on to flow, and but obviously nature shows us so much about the ebb and flow, and that this is all part of it, and the cycles of, you know, birth and death and growth, and then death and then rebirth. And it's sort of something that we do challenge, you know, we do come up against constantly. Like, we really resist, you know, moving into a time of ebb, or moving into a time of a darker time. And actually, you know, I was just doing one of my own shows, actually, for Wellbeing Radio, and I'm talking about the autumn equinox that's coming up on the 21st, and how this is a time to actually recognize that from that point we're going to be moving into the shorter days, so the nights are going to start to be longer. And many people feel this, like, oh no, you know, I want to hold on to summer, I want to hold on to that growth. But that nature is such a wonderful teacher for that, because nature doesn't resist that. Nature's already preparing for this time. And you've probably seen that the trees are already starting to change in color, the leaves are already starting to drop, they're already beginning to release what they don't need, and let that go and shed. And then they're going inwards to really nourish themselves inside, nourish the tree trunk, and ensure that they are nourished throughout sort of all the depths of autumn, and then through winter, and ready to come and be rebirthed again in the spring. And I guess, I mean, I know that as humans we can't completely shut down for the winter, but it is a time to think about, well, actually, how can I shift my energy? How can I change gears a little bit? You know, what needs to just fall away for this time, because the days are going to be shorter and my energy may be changing. But as well, you know, working with the cycle of the seasons, but also as women working with our own cycles, I feel really passionate about. In fact, I've just done some study around that work, and because it was coming up a lot with my clients, you know, just working through their own cycle. and honoring the different stages in their own cycle. And I'm really wanting to bring that element more into my work now, because it's so relevant for women, and so important for us to be aware of our energy and work with that, and not constantly strive. You know, that's what happens a lot, isn't it? We kind of push through, and that doesn't
it's not
serve
good,
us.
is it? It really brings up the cortisol levels, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny listening, talking to you about the seasons, because obviously I grew up on the other side of the world in Australia, and this time of year is like it's around my birthday, and so in Australia it's springtime. Even though I've been over here for more than 20 years, I tend to get the itch to do all my spring cleaning now. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's probably ingrained in you. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, but it's such a magical time of year. It really is. I love this time of year because it's the season of the harvest and everything.
Yeah.
It's just, and the veil gets very thin around when we've got Halloween, Samhain coming up, and
yes,
it's just it's that mystical time of year, isn't it? So
I do think it's wonderful to take time out around the autumn equinox as well. Really, you know, if anybody can, you know, to whether it's alone or whether they attend a workshop, really wonderful time to actually take a step back, take a pause. And like you said, the harvest, it's like important to honor that time and celebrate all of our achievements, especially, I mean, this year, the epic year of challenges that everybody has faced. That it's so important to acknowledge people's achievements, what they're proud of, you know, what have been their harvest, and then, you know, and then think about sort of intentions moving forwards. And yeah, I think I love spring and autumn equinox. I think they're both such powerful times of year.
They kind of turn the wheel, don't they?
Yeah,
You really notice the change.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, you also do bespoke events, don't you? So
yes.
How do you tend to run those?
Well, I mean, to be honest, it started quite organically again. That's one of my motto actually, is that I try to just trust in the unfolding. I'm not a huge planner, and I wanted to offer a client. She sort of said, "Oh, I'd love to just take a day out with you. You know, that would be amazing." And I was like, "Well, you can." And so I came up with this concept where people would spend, I guess, about 4 or 5 hours with me, and it would consist of a really beautiful walk and talk, and some mindfulness meditation, some seated coaching and intention setting, and some energy healing as well. And then that kind of moved into working with smaller groups. So I had a group of friends wanting to come and spend the day with me, and I have a little studio at the bottom of my garden, which is beautiful. And I'm also soon going to be working from a cabin in the woods in a location in Biggin Hill. I can't give the full details away yet because it hasn't officially launched, but it's really exciting. You've
got your own shaman shack.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, you know, I work a lot with vision boards as well, and I have always placed a picture of a cabin in the woods on my vision boards, because I'm always like, that's the dream, you know, to be able to work in that way. And then this opportunity arose with somebody else who I'm going to be sharing the space with, and it was like, wow. And there's like a little log burner in there, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, I'm really hoping to actually reignite those days out, because I can gather, like, people can come to me solo or with a friend. I had a lady come with her mum as well. I did, so 2 daughters and their mum came, and we did a beautiful mindfulness walk, and then they wanted to create a vision board, so we did a vision board workshop together. So yeah, I kind of, you know, they are very bespoke, I guess. I like to be able to sit and chat with the people first, and, you know, what kind of experience you're looking for, you know, what would you like to leave with, what sort of energy would you like to connect with, how would you like to feel, and, you know, and go from there. But always the being outside and the walking is always usually the most favorite part. I think as well, you know, there's something very I don't want to say the word tribal, but, you know, this kind of wonderful women walking outside together in a group, side by side. And that's why I've also taken women's circles outside now. I have like an event coming up on the 26th, which is a forest bathing session followed by a women's circle. And it's just really wonderful, this, you know, feminine energy, this connected to nature. and being outside and all together is really, really incredible energy as well. So yeah, lots of different things.
So many things. I feel drawn to ask you about your childhood. Did you grow up in nature?
Yeah, I did. Well, when I was about 8, I lived on a big estate from when I was a baby, and I went to a really big school. And then my dad was an Arga engineer. Do you know those big cookers,
Yes.
Argas? And so he was self-employed, and he used to drive around the beautiful Suffolk countryside and go and service Argas in beautiful English country cottages. And whenever I had holidays, I would always go to work with him. And I loved it. I just would love driving around the countryside and then going to all these gorgeous houses, all the lovely dogs. Anyway, so because of that, I think then he wanted to move out to the countryside. And when I was 8, we moved out to this tiny village, and I went to a tiny village school. In fact, when I arrived there, they were like, "Oh, welcome. Yeah, we don't have any other second year juniors, so you're it."
Oh my God, it was tiny.
Yeah, and bearing in mind I'd come from a school of about 300 kids, I was horrified.
Yeah, you must have been shocked.
I was like, "Mom, Dad, what are you doing to me? This is awful." But obviously, in hindsight, looking back at it, I'm so grateful to them that they did that. It was, I think by the time I left that school, there was 4 of us or 5 of us in our year group. Some other people had joined. And so, yeah, I did live in a beautiful little village. We had our playground field area. There's this gorgeous oak tree at the bottom that we would always play on. We would do mud kitchens and climb on and do dance routines on it and stuff. And I had a paper round, when I was really young. I would just get on my bike and cycle around the village doing the paper round. So yeah, but I also had a big disconnect as well when I went to university, and I kind of fell in love with London, and I went very kind of hedonistic kind of world, very driven, wanted a career, and spent most of my time in London. And whilst I have really amazing memories of it, I also can look back on that time and feel a sense of disconnection. Notice that I was disconnected from myself, from my body, and my being, and especially from nature as well. So the kind of then the gradual return, I really felt this sense of coming home. Because when I moved out of London, you're always a bit scared when you move out of London, like, "Oh, what's it going to be like? How am I going to be able to survive? And what will I do?" And, I think people are a bit apprehensive about leaving London. And personally, I never, ever looked back. As soon as I moved out of London, I was like, this is what I needed. I suddenly felt really a sense of coming home. Yeah, it's very powerful.
It's beautiful. And just tell us a little bit more about your wellbeing radio show, because I've been on there.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. It's so lovely to be able to interview you. Thank you. It was, again, completely unexpected. I was doing an event for Kate Taylor. I was holding a meditation on a boat, connecting. We were doing a water-based...
That sounds fabulous.
Yeah,
Can I join that one?
Yeah. It was really amazing, actually, connecting to the water element whilst being on the boat, looking outside. And a lady was there, and she approached me, and she was talking about wellbeing radio. And at first I thought she just wanted me to go on the show and be interviewed. And I was like, yeah, sure. Oh, come on, I'll be interviewed. And then it transpired that they would like me to host my own show on there. And of course, I was blown away. And then, of course, the fear stepped in with, can I do this? So I have 2 young children, and it's already a bit of a juggle. But we were literally, I think a week later, we went into lockdown. And so I really just went with that feeling that this is being an opportunity given to me, and I'm doing a lot less of the outdoor work. So it's clearly a sign that this is something I should go for. So, but really having not much experience of having, a radio show or a podcast.
Oh my God, you're amazing. You're a complete natural.
Oh, thank you so much.
Really good interviewer.
Oh, thank you. It has been incredible. And I think you probably know this yourself, that when you doing these shows, you learn so much. I mean, some of the shows I hold completely myself, so they're just sort of like my own podcast where I talk about an element of nature connection. It's called Connect to Nature with Tansy. So then I may choose an aspect of nature connection, and then at other times I will interview other people working in the industry in all different ways, and it's amazing. I just feel so honoured to firstly be able to share my passion for the work I do, and to be able to, I guess, guide people to that place, maybe introduce them to nature, to maybe begin a journey or to deepen their own journey, but then also to be able to interview so many incredible people like yourself and to get different perspectives. You know, nature connection is not just what I do. It's not just going to walk out in the forest. It's on so many levels that people work with nature. You know, I'm hoping to look at Wim Hof method, you know, that aspect of nature connection, and wild swimming, and all different that people are doing, essential oils. There's so many different aspects of nature connection, so I really hope to bring that to my listeners.
That's gorgeous. I love, wild swimming is amazing. I just went to Spain, and we were in this beautiful, it's called Cueva del Gato, it's the cave of the cat, and it's the coldest water you'll ever be in, and it comes down out of the mountains, and you've got this waterfall into this turquoise pool, and we discovered it a few years ago, and I was so grateful to be able to get out there and actually go, because we stay at the Costa del Sol, but we always just go away from people anyway and drive up into the hills and go and find the wild swimming places and the lakes and the embalses. This place is incredible. So magical, and you just reminded me of it. I was just, and it's so cold, it's like literally you go into hypothermic shock, but it's so beautiful. You have to get in, and it's 37 degrees outside, so it's, but that cold water immersion, it's like I did it recently. I've been doing a bit of lake swimming as well, and I just noticed the temperature's just starting to get a bit colder. And then it's almost like electric sort of shocks, isn't it? Your body's just like, so like tingles all over, and then you go a bit numb, but then afterwards you just sort of get into it. And that's why I'm interested in Wim Hof, because I think, you know, that's the reports about wild swimming and Wim Hof method, things like that. It's amazing for things like depression and anxiety, emotional health conditions. It's like a light bolt to the body, to the system. A good shock, isn't it? My body got confused. It was like, am I burning or am I freezing? Yes. You go into that almost burning sensation, don't you? But then the rejuvenation that you feel afterwards is, it's incredible. Yeah, it's been something that I've been yearning to do for a while and hadn't actually found anywhere near me. And again, you know, with the kiddies and not being, you can't do it all. But then an opportunity, I just found like this lake. I think it's becoming bigger now and more people are doing it. So more lakes and open water spaces are offering it. So it was great. I found a lake that's 20 minutes. So it's my new hobby. Really pleased. Yeah. And obviously we have to talk about Wonderment. As we film this, we're not sure what's going on with the government guidelines, are we? But if it goes ahead, we're both doing the Wonderment Retreat on the 17th of September. So if you're watching this, do check it out, because if it goes ahead, it really is worth coming along. It's such a beautiful way to connect to nature. And Tansy, you're going to be taking people on some of your beautiful walks and things, aren't you? Yeah. I mean, last year I held one kind of longer forest bathing workshop, and I mean the land in Wazing is it's magical. I mean, I really, as soon as I got there, I could feel it immediately. I mean, your energy work is probably so much more than mine, but I know as soon as I was just like, oh my goodness. And then I was walking around all of the woodland, and they have these ancient yew trees, and just really incredible. So yeah, on the Saturday I held a forest bathing workshop, and then on the Sunday we did a tree workshop meditation, and it was actually pouring a bit of rain that time that we were doing it, but again it was just so magical, because that like just gives an added sensory experience. And we were just standing under these trees and listening and connecting. It was really lovely. That's why I met Krista, actually. She came along. Yeah, she came back drenched, bless her. Yeah, but we were but again it just sort of didn't seem to matter, you know. We were really connected. It was a really powerful experience. So
yeah, so hopefully, yeah, I'm really, really hopeful for Chris that it does go ahead. We have to wait and see. But it really was magical, wasn't it? It really was I mean, Chris is, you know, such an incredible host. The way he brings people together is really incredible. Yeah, he's got a very,
he's like a little magician, isn't he?
Talent,
little,
yeah. It's like,
man.
you know, yeah, he really brings so much wonderful energy to groups of people. So, yeah, I hope he gets to bring everyone together.
Me too. Well, you know, viewers, if you're watching, you know, do check out the Wonderment. They do online events as well. So even if the retreat doesn't go ahead, there's loads there, and I'm sure we'll both be doing more as well.
Yeah, he has been in such amazing service during this time. Like, to be that consistent throughout this whole time is really something to admire.
He's kept us going and
connected. He really has. Yeah, I love that he called it love down instead of lockdown.
I know.
It's the love down.
Love down. So gorgeous. So tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, honey. What's your website and everything?
So my website is called hershininglight.com, and that has everything, all of my work listed on there. On Instagram, I'm Tansy Jane Dowman, and on Facebook as well. I have a page there, and like I said, I've just started a small group on Facebook called the Reconnection Nest, and I'm going to be doing more actually in that group. I want to be able to start doing some lives from nature. I need to find a space in nature where I can connect to Wi-Fi, which is not probably the best thing, but you have to find a balance, don't you? But I really want to be able to do lives from the forest, but it's quite difficult, obviously, because your connection goes out. But that's the whole point. You go to nature to unplug, but then I want to be able to offer it to people who perhaps aren't able to access it all the time, and then also be able to guide people through, if they were going for a walk on their own, what are some of the things that they could do, give them some tips and guidance. So I'm going to start doing that soon as well.
And more walks with your GoPro. That's
exactly. Well, I want to be able to, I don't know how technology is me. I learned a lot during lockdown, but I think it's because we were all forced to, and it really challenged me in new ways, and I learned a lot of things. But naturally, I am so much happier out in the forest.
I think you speak tree network more than Wi-Fi network.
I want to connect to that network instead. But I think that's everything, and that, website, Instagram, the usual.
Amazing. Well, I will share all the links below in the comments for all the viewers, so that you guys can just go there and you can click on all Tansy's info, and I'll share links to the Wellbeing Radio as well, so they can listen to some of your interviews and the Wonderment and everything. And oh my darling, I also just want to say your voice is so calming.
Thank you.
Honestly, it's wonderful that you have a radio show now. I think it was only a matter of time, because I could sit here and listen to you all day long.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind.
Out really beautifully.
That's on my list. Is I want to start recording some walking meditations, and that's like I need to do that people can listen and go for a walk and follow a meditation. So thank you. You've just given me
that is a great idea. You should have an app actually, where people can just download your meditations and go out.
That's more technology though.
No, just pay someone to do it.
Exactly.
We don't have to do it ourselves.
I know. You got to stick to my skill set. It's fine.
I love it. Oh, well,
thank you.
Honey, thank you so much for joining me today on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I really want to go out and hug a tree now. I'm going to go out to the garden and do some nature observation myself. Until next time, thank you so much.
I hope that I will see you in the woods in Wonderment. We can hug trees together. That's what I keep saying to people. Don't worry, if you can't hug each other, you can still go and hug the trees. It's fine, and you feel so much love back from those trees. If you hold on for a while, you start to feel that oxytocin level rise. So
that's it. And even if we have to socially distance, I think it's just being in the presence of other people and having that connection that's so important.
Definitely. That collective energy coming together is just as powerful. So fingers crossed. Cool. Thank you so much.
And for all our beautiful viewers, thank you so much for joining us on the Alexandra Wenman Show, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.